Yeah.
Form. Yeah.
You have any forms back there?
No, there's a form. They need to bring the pen back. Yeah. Okay.
How are you, sir? Good. You're good. Oh, really? Yeah, Daryl's last year was good. Yeah, right.
Hey, you know what do you think? I'm pretty good at you. You see that? Oh, good to see you. Yeah. He says it's been awesome.
How are you? Good. So I'm gonna tag you.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Right?
This is not working. The recorder thing is not
Happy New Year,
working.
that's all right. Merry Christmas.
It says streaming failed, recording failed. Yeah, we're starting video. That's recording, so.
Well, at the end of all places.
We have. It's giving out. Thank you. Thank you.
No. Before we get started, if anyone's here that's wishing to speak on the resolution or anything else that's on the agenda, there's some sign-up sheets that we need, any of those two topics.
Is he coming back?
Ready?
Yes.
Good evening and welcome to the January 31st LPA meeting. So, for a year.
The microphone is not working.
No, I know, we gotta speak loud apparently. Yeah, I was gonna say, we need to speak very loudly tonight since the recording is not working and the mics may not be as well apparently. So if we can take a moment to silence our cell phones so that we're not interrupted, that would be great, thank you. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Present tonight, we have Darrell Lopez, David Pollock, Bruce Kavanaugh, Brian Smith, Matias Maggio, and new member Catherine Hunt.
Thank you and welcome to the board. The next order of business is the election of chair and vice chair. We'll take commissioner nominations.
Chair, I'd like to nominate you to remain as chair.
Okay. Second by Mr. Kavanaugh. Any discussion? Any other?
Well, I do have my concern.
Okay, very good. Seeing no other nominations, all those in favor of me staying as chair, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. So we need a motion for a vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate David to remain as vice chair.
Second. Okay, we have a second from Mr. Matthews. Any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll close that. All those in favor of Mr. Pollock. As vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Anything that's, thank you, everyone. Next order of business is approval of minutes from our last work session. And Tuesday, December 6th, will be one motion for each one, or can we do them both together, Mr. Hall?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the work session.
Okay, is there a second?
Second. This is November 29th one, right?
Yep.
At the work session.
The work session.
Who was the second?
It was,
Hey, everybody.
Mr. Mathis, Mr. Mathis.
No complicated.
Matias?
We'll give it to Mr. Mathis. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
I have one question. The comments that are here, do we actually all say these things? The one comment that is, the one comment for me was, I said, the best thing we can do is look at where we are today and where things might potentially go. Did I? That's like a pretty obvious statement. Did I say that?
That's a good one.
I read that and I went, really?
If it's in there, you said it. The recording doesn't
Maybe
lie.
paraphrase.
No, yeah,
I think it's
I remember having a
like
lot
clip
more
notes.
discussion than that one thing.
I think they just give you the headline of what you said. It pretty much captures what was said. I like to
See
see
that
that
one
one.
in my name.
Would you like to amend it?
Minutes aren't intended to be verbatim, they're just supposed to hit the high points, and that's what.
Yeah, that's my high point. That was a pretty low point, low reading for me.
Yeah, you would have the right to correct minutes if your plans shows.
Okay, so I'll call the vote on approval of the minutes for November 29th, the work session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. I need a motion for the minutes for Tuesday, December 6th. Okay, Mrs. Sherman,
Make a motion to approve the minutes for Tuesday, December 6th.
is there a second?
Second.
Kavanaugh, any discussions on the minutes from December 6th? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, those approved. The next order of business on the agenda is public comments. This is for anybody wishing to speak on any item that's not on the agenda. That's the time to do so. Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak about.
You're speaking on the resolution, correct?
Sorry?
You have a form in here for the resolution?
Yes.
When we get there, you'll be able to speak.
I'd like to speak in general terms as well as for that resolution.
Well, if you're going to mention the resolution in general now, you can't.
Okay.
Thank you. Seeing no public comments, I will close that portion of the meeting and going into public meeting. We have a request for mediation request for 1175 Stellar Drive. The applicant is present. You come up and state your name for the address, name and address for the records, please.
I'm Sherwood, 175 Stone Drive, Lakeview, Florida, 32765.
Tell us a little bit about your project, or you just want to let staff do it?
The air conditioner on the side of the house, from the back side of the house.
Okay, all right, thank you. Can we get some staff, please?
So here, so.
You can stay, no, you can sit down.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. This is a request for the local planning agency to approve the following. A 1 foot 8 inch deviation for the minimum 8 foot required side setback, representing a 20.8% deviation to setback requirements in the proposed air conditioning unit to be located 6 feet forward from the east side setback. Applicants, property owners are Rodney and Michelle Sherwood, located at 1175 Stellar Drive, Revito. The subject property is located on Lot 5 within the preserve at Black Hammock Replat subdivision. Property's future land use designation is low density residential. I lost my mic. Okay. The proposed deviation will permit the applicant to install an AC unit to the side of the house, 6 feet 4 inches from the east side property line. The existing location of the AC unit is currently behind the northeast corner wall of the house, approximately 10 feet from the east side property line. Adjacent to the AC unit is the pool equipment. The property owner is requesting this adjustment in order to decongest the area for maintenance purposes. Additionally, the applicant would like to extend the lifespan and improve the efficiency of the unit by moving it to a significantly more shaded location. And this would represent a 20.8% deviation to the setback requirement. The applicant submitted an application for the requested deviation and has provided a written narrative. Some criteria for approval is required in LDC section 2.7C. Staff has reviewed the deviation application for LDC section 2.7 and has summarized the findings below. One is the existing special conditions. The subject property is located on a standard rectangular shaped lot. There are no special conditions or circumstances existing on this lot. Number 2, compatibility. The proposed setback deviation, scale, and intensity are compatible with and will not adversely impact land use activities on adjacent properties. Number 3, proper use of mitigating techniques. Applicant proposes to plant photocarpus shrubs around the AC unit in order to provide a visual screen and light. Number 4, protection of environmentally sensitive areas. The proposed deviation is not necessary to conserve and protect the natural environment and is not anticipated to affect environmental areas negatively. Number 5, only minimum deviation granted. The requested deviation is the minimum necessary to allow for the AC unit to exist on the side of the house. Number 6, open space and other facilities. While the proposed deviation would not prevent the applicant from maintaining at least 25% of the space in the lot, it does not make more usable and suitably located open space, public and common facilities that would otherwise be provided under strict application of the minimum LDC requirement. Number 7, existing non-conforming uses of other property not based for approval. No non-conforming situations in neighboring properties or districts were considered during the revision. And number 8, other information. The applicant did provide a written narrative per the criteria for approval is provided in LDC section 2D and 4.15. Okay, so let's see. Recommendation, staff recommends approval of the deviation development order. It's attached before, which grants the following deviation along with one condition. A 1 foot 8 inch deviation to the minimum 8 foot required side setback, representing a 20.8 deviation to setback requirements. To permit the proposed AC unit be located 6 feet 4 inches from the east side setback. Prior to the issuance of the certificate of completion, the new addition by the Building Services Division, there's one condition. The applicant shall plant photocarpus shrubs around the AC unit in order to provide a visual screen and mitigate lines. The following options: approve the deviation as submitted, approve the deviation as submitted with conditions, approve the lesser deviation, or approve a lesser deviation with conditions, or deny it. That concludes my presentation.
Is there any question?
I submitted these photos. As you can see, this red X here is the sort of proposed new location. That's it.
In the past, we've had discussions about specific plants, and what we resolved to do in the past was say photocarpus or something similar from the Florida-friendly plant markets that will be provided. Is there a reason why we didn't include that language here, or?
No, I believe it was actually offered the photocarpus, but it's something that we commonly recommend anyways, or we refer to that same Florida-friendly list.
And usually when we do these in discussion of past photocarpus, or
Sure.
the photocarpus does replace with something that an applicant walk into a code violation because they're trying to find one plant that they can't find.
Sure.
Anyway, so there wouldn't be any objection to including that language, given the flexibility of
The screening shrub, right, the Florida-friendly list. Sure.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. That's all.
Any other on the board?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the deviation request for 1175 Stellar Drive, legal project number 2227, and the rest of that stuff. That's enough, right?
Yep.
What's that?
You need to add the conditions.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying that's enough to identify what you're doing. With the condition, well, not the condition of, but modifying the condition from photocarpus to screening shrub of photocarpus or something similar from Florida.
There's a second. Any discussion? Between us? Good. Any other discussion? Make a motion? Motion to approve the resolution, deviation request 1175 Stellar Drive. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is public hearing. Before we move on to that, is there any other, I'll make one more comment. Is there anybody here wishing to speak on this resolution? If so, there are some forms that need to be filled out. Wishing to speak. Okay. You're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request from the local planning agency. Recommend approval of the fourth amendment to the fourth amended substantial deviation development order for the Oviedo Marketplace DRI. This is located approximately 2,100 feet north of Redwood Lake Road, east of Oviedo Mall Boulevard, and approximately 2,600 feet west of State Road 417 in the location. The consultant is Joe Thacker, Esquire with Nelson, Mullins, Riley, and Starkville. So the second property is part, the subject property is part of the Oviedo Marketplace, formerly known as Oviedo Crossing, with health and a regional impact. The total acreage within the city is 242 acres. The subject fourth amendment to the fourth amended and restated substantial development order affects the DRI parcel 12, tract 4. Now, there were two previous amendments within the past year and a half to this DRI, and the latest one was approved by City Council as late as August of last year. You all have seen each one of these approved. The last one related to parcel 3, tract 3, which is the Macy's parcel, which is just east of that subject property. So you have the mall in between, you have Dillard's, and you have the rest of the mall. And tract 3 is located near this, which is the Macy's building property. And at that time, Macy's developer at that time removed 52,935 square feet of retail entitlements from the 180 square foot Macy's property and converted it into 175 age-restricted multifamily units and 250 unrestricted multifamily dwelling units. Subsequent to that, they came back before this board and asked to remove the age restriction from the multifamily housing. That the board will remove 9 multifamilies to 425 total housing. So tonight, this is an amendment for a different parcel on tract 12, which is the highlighted parcel. And it's tract 4. The applicant is proposing to use approximately 26,157 square feet of retail from the unused portion of the mall. And then this is reflected as an equivalency in terms of traffic, it's equivalent to 328 multifamily residential dwelling units. Each table that is provided in that DRI development agreement, it will reduce the retail square footage by 26,157 square feet, and then it will add 328 multifamily residential dwelling units with associated parking. In terms of transportation, the subject fourth amendment amends the DRI trip equivalency matrix to accommodate the conversion of 26,157 square feet of available retail space to 328 multifamily residential dwelling units. The conversion is within the impacts of the originally approved square footage law and will not result in any increased trip generation. City's transportation consultant reviewed that analysis and determined that no additional trips will be created as a result of the proposed amendment. In terms of Seminole County Public Schools impact analysis, it is anticipated that the fourth amendment will generate 51 elementary school students, 20 middle school students, and 27 high school students. Seminole County Public School District staff evaluated the proposed number of students generated by the proposed amendment and concluded that there is a capacity issue with the elementary school concurrency service area, which is SAE3, with the assigned Rainbow Elementary. But there is still capacity with the other schools in that CSA-E3. There is sufficient capacity for the middle school CSA, which is CSA M3, and high school CSA4. And a copy of the school district staff analysis is provided in your report. Jordan Smith, who's the facilities planner with the Seminole County, here tonight to answer any questions regarding schools. The Assistant City Attorney reviewed the subject fourth amendment and identified no concerns relative to the content. Staff recommends approval. This item is scheduled for City Council consideration on February 20th. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is also present.
Okay. I have a request to speak from a Lawrence Danville, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman.
Come up to the mic.
Mr. Chairman, you need to allow the applicant I speak first.
Okay. Sorry.
Good evening, Joan Thacker, 390 North Orange Avenue, Orlando. I'm here representing the applicant tonight. Staff did a great job of explaining what our request is to you, and we would like to say that we worked hard with staff to understand the impacts this would have. We understand that the mall is a vital piece of property, and it's been underutilized, and it's been there for a long time, and so now it's time to redevelop it, make it be a vital part of the city of Oviedo. By doing this, adding the multifamily, what we've also committed to is to have pedestrian walkways and make it more feasible for the residents of these 328 units to push them towards the mall. That is part of the plan, to be able to push them to utilize the mall, to make that more viable. I think with what you've already approved on the other side of the mall, now what you have there and you have on this side of the mall, so you have it on both sides, that will make hopefully the mall come alive and be able to put some more uses and different uses in there. We are happy to address any questions you have, and what I'd like to do is reserve some time based on what you hear from the public to be able to respond to those comments.
Thank you. I apologize for realizing you were here on behalf of the developer.
Thank you.
So I do have a request to speak from Lawrence Vanderpool. Will come up, state your name and address for the record, please. And just to affirm you have just 3 minutes.
Hear me okay?
Yep.
My name is Lawrence Denapoli. I live at 1991 Silverweed Way, which is in the Isles of Oviedo, right across the street from me. I need to back up a little bit and give you a little background. Function in organizations for the past 41, 42 years and do systems engineering. One of the significant techniques that we've learned is to look at the big picture. Big picture on Oviedo Mall Boulevard is that we're proposing 300 units per year. Right now there are 300 units under construction on Broadway and Oviedo Mall Boulevard. If you ever stand on the corner of Oviedo Mall Boulevard and Red Welk Lake Road at 5 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock in the morning, it's a traffic nightmare. And Oviedo Mall Boulevard is the shortcut around that intersection. Walk quite a bit. The speed limit is 35. Nobody travels at 35 miles an hour at 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning on that. These two developments are going to make things entirely worse, in an extreme fashion. I'm very concerned about it. There's lots of children in our development. They stand there and get their school buses right there on Oviedo Mall Boulevard every day. I'm talking about putting 600 units either end of the mall on that road. Also, it looks to me, from what I've seen in the Addison Young development pictures, that the egress and ingress at that development on the corner of both West Broadway and Oviedo Mall Boulevard has one entrance and one exit. In addition to the 300 units, there's a proposal for a hotel, and there's a proposal for commercial units between the apartments and 417. And it looks to me like this is completely overdone. I've only been in Oviedo. I moved to Oviedo from Central New Jersey in June of 2019. All this is brand new since then. Also seen apartments go up on East Mitchell Hammock across from Oviedo Park. Now they're very congested here. In addition to that, the food factory went up. It's pretty much empty now. I saw today, there's less than 12 parking spaces for that space. Where's everybody going to park? Across the street from the food factory, they're clearing land now. There's bulldozers in there, or I believe it's an apartment complex. Now, big picture. We heard from the impact on the schools. Impact on the traffic. What's the impact on the police? What's the impact on the fire department? What's the impact on all the rest of the community services? That's the big picture. We can't just continue to build without understanding what we need to ground it. This, it just seems to be much too quick, much too fast. And I'm not saying that this planning isn't done, it's just not being advertised or publicized. It really concerns me, because I am a big picture person, and Vito Mall Boulevard is going to be a traffic nightmare. And I'm concerned about those kids that stand there on the bus stop. And the reason I bought my townhouse there was it was a nice peaceful area.
Thank you very much.
One more thing, please. I'd like to. I'm sorry, please, I don't mean to complain, I'm just trying to point out a big picture thought. In closing, I want to thank all of you for your
The next person I have wishing to speak is Donald Terry. You'll come up and state your name and address for the record.
Such a personality. My name is Donald Terry, live at 1911 Silverweed Way, which is also in the Isles of Oviedo, directly across the street from the mall. So I have the same concerns. So now we're talking another development, 300 or more units right at the mall, on top of this other project, which is called the Dwell, I guess, at the corner of Oviedo Mall Boulevard and Broadway. Right now, I did write an email to Ms. Slater, as well as Mr. Cobb was copied on it, and their response was, well, Oviedo Mall Boulevard was designed to handle much more traffic than what all this development will bring to the road, because I guess at one time the mall was very busy. Again, I don't really buy into that, because first of all, there's no turning lanes, there's no caution lights, there's no stop lights. If you are driving west from Broadway towards the mall, towards the bridge that goes over 417, with the Dwell and that whole development, there's a slight bend, and you really cannot see somebody pulling out of that place. And that is the only egress to that entire development. I mean, there's a little team road called Sugar Mill Road. I don't see that as being, it's a very narrow path. That can't be an egress for that development. So you add on this other one that they want to do at the mall. I mean, that's bringing a lot of traffic to what is basically a side road. We have 180 units in the Isle of Oviedo. So, that's probably 300 cars. You gotta figure 2 cars per unit. So this is an extra, you're talking 1,200 cars between the two of them. And as my neighbor, Mr. Napoli, said, at certain hours of the day, even now there's a fair amount of traffic on Oviedo Mall Boulevard, people taking that shortcut. And now there's a posting for another thing between Target and the mall, I think. This resolution 4303-23, or is this what this young lady's talking about?
Yes.
That's what they're talking about, is this. All right, so again, I really like you, and I understand you're supposed to allow all this development, but I would think the developer would be able to do some things to help with turning lanes or some lights or something to take into consideration in this regards. And I would put that expense on them and not on the city of Oviedo.
Thank you. Molly?
I do, but I was wondering if we can hear, because that's where I have questions.
We'll get to you. It's gonna be a long evening. Hopefully not. Good day, sir. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board, Jordan Smith, Summit County's Facilities Plan, 400 East by Mary Boulevard, San Francisco.
So, I've been asking, and I asked that this question before, and so probably
You're not the only one.
in the circle, but the question is this, so we heard, from staff that, there is not local capacity for the element, there is capacity in the county at large. And, question, I have one for the city, but since I have her, I'll speak first. How does that work? So let's say they put up 300 units, and let's say there's 50 elementary school kids beyond the estimated amount, or whatever, and there's no room. Where do those kids go to school, and how do they get there?
So, a couple things to keep in mind. These are all fluid numbers as it changes
Right.
year to year due to enrollment, and capacity for schools, any improvements that we do at schools. There's two things to keep in mind. There's attendance zones, which are where kids are assigned to school, then there's currency service areas, and that's the level of service that we evaluate for school capacity. CSAs are broken up with multiple attendance zones and geographic areas. Per the interlocal agreement, which the city is a party of, we can look at adjacent CSAs. And we do have the capacity in adjacent CSAs, for instance, 3 miles down the road from this particular project, this Stenstrom Elementary. So there is capacity at that school, but per the school ILA, we do have capacity in adjacent CSAs. There's Florida Administrative Code that says, at no time shall the shift of impact to an adjacent CSA result in a total morning or afternoon transportation time of either elementary or secondary students to exceed 50 minutes or 1 hour, respectively. So we do have measures in place to ensure that students we're minimizing the travel time for a school bus.
So, and I have one, I want to get back, so buses are provided then to take the students from?
As long as it's not a magnet program. If it's third zone school and there's not capacity and they can go to adjacent CSA, then that's supposed to be run.
Okay, now, not if it's more than 15 minutes? Is that
We're not going to keep a student on a bus for more than 50 minutes for elementary and an hour for secondary.
So, let me piggyback on you.
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
or whatever.
Yeah, so, you said that, Stenstrom has capacity, correct?
Correct.
So, that would mean that for the most part, if I'm hearing you correctly, which you haven't said the magic word, which is rezoning, the districts, is that correct? If that project were to go through, to accommodate the kids?
At this point, there's no need to rezone. We do have capacity in adjacent schools and that.
I know the adjacent schools have capacity, but
Right.
if the kids are living in that parcel, in that section, right? That means you have to shift population around. The only way you shift population is to do a rezoning, correct?
That's a decision that's made by the school board.
But ultimately, that would be, potentially could be the end game. I mean, you can't speak for the board, I understand that, but outlining that would be the only solution. Because buses can only go so many distance from out and back, like you said, with a 50-minute ride.
As long as we have capacity in adjacent CSAs, which are close to the proximity of the development, then there would be no need to do a rezone.
I measured it 15 minutes.
50, 5-0.
Did you say 50 or 515?
50.
Oh, never mind. So, then to piggyback on what Mr. Lopez was saying, sorry, I thought you said 15.
No, he said 50, no, they
It
can't.
takes me 15 minutes to walk.
I'll take that long just to go
I know.
down those same blocks.
Piggyback on what, and now I remember what I was gonna say, so, let's say there's 21 more students, but there's capacity at Stenstrom. At what point, or does it ever, if an apartment complex, so let's say this one or another one throughout the city that increases no more that there's not capacity for, at what point does that ever have the potential to displace certain students that attend that school?
As long as the students enrolled in the school, we're not displacing them.
But if you rezone, that would take a student from that school and move them or no?
No.
Not if they're already enrolled in that
That's one of
school.
the policies that's counted.
Okay, so
They can finish- they can
if
finish
a
up.
child starts school A, and
Right.
then the school is rezoned somewhere around 3rd grade, that child will be able to continue through the
from what I understand, I can get.
That's my understanding as
Yes.
well, being that my wife's a teacher.
Okay, so that is accurate.
That is accurate, yes.
So students won't get displaced that are already in the school by new students putting demand on the school. But the new students will continue to be, as long as they're late and within 50 minutes, those students will be taken there. And if there is a rezoning, they'll make sure that there's enough room for the kids who already go there plus the additional students.
Correct, and it's also our goal not to have a student on a bus for 50 minutes.
50 minutes.
So
50.
we do everything in our power to make sure that the students can attend the closest school to their zone school. Capacity is not available at the zone school.
So now, hypothetically, if there was a capacity within 50 minutes, at that point, the school board would advise the city that, I'm sorry, we don't have a capacity project, or what happens at that point?
So currently, this project has a non-binding agreement. When they go in for final engineering, they'll submit for a stall, which actually reserves capacity for the particular project, reserves student stations. And at that point, we'll do another analysis because numbers change. And then if there's not capacity if there's no capacity at the zone school, we'll mention that in a swap letter. And if there's no capacity in that CSA, we'll mention the CSAs where there's capacity available. So those students that have a particular project will have seats to go to at some kind of public schools within their proximity to their project.
In the event that there wasn't a CSA, what would happen then? Like with the project being at that point, and this might be a city question. I know that's never happened, and then you're here to say, there's room in the CSA, that's it. I got you. So.
I'm here to say that we do have capacity.
Yeah, okay,
for the
cool,
project.
so I appreciate that. And if I can ask, what would happen then in a position where?
I think that's a hypothetical that he can't believe.
No, I'm asking you.
Yeah.
I mean, there is mitigation for, mitigation between the developer and the school if it came to that.
Okay, so they have to build a
Yeah.
school or something.
I've not seen a situation where the
Right.
school board has turned down development.
Okay, no, that's it, I just was trying to see the logical end to.
Yeah.
Concerns that people
The
might
school
have.
board is very good.
Yeah.
At working with developers to make it happen, in my opinion.
I don't have any more questions here.
Yeah, questions? No?
Yeah.
Move forward.
So, I guess for the city, in reading, what you talked about, the 26,000 plus square feet of retail space that was being exchanged, is that what I would understand, we're exchanging 26,000 square feet of retail space for these things? So, where's it coming from? Are we knocking down a certain amount of square footage of building to take away this point? I know you're gonna shake your head no. Where does it come from? That's really what I'm trying to figure out. How do we justify the 26,000 square feet, and where is it coming from, and where is it going?
Is that on?
Right now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so the square footage is coming from the unused portion of retail. So the mall is approved for, it's about 1.8 million square feet. And so we removed some of it from that number because of May. And then they're also proposing to remove some of it for the actual mall building. I will tell you the square footage of the actual mall building. It is about 773,000. So you minus that from that, that's what gives you.
So the 1 point, yeah, the
And
one
actually,
million.
I'm looking at it's about 1.33.
Yeah, so that square footage, that included Macy's, included Dillard's, included Sears.
Macy's is removed from that.
So Macy's is gone out of it. I remember us having that conversation before, so that's gone. So you say from the unused portion of the mall building itself, so if it's unused, does that mean that if all of a sudden people want to come and put retail space in the mall, there's gonna be a certain area that we are now designating and roping off as unusable?
No, so there's still square footage left over. If you're talking about locating inside of the mall, that is already accounted for. If you're talking about an expansion.
I can clarify. I can clarify. So at one point, one of the outer parcels was supposed to be like J.C. Penney's, which never used. So that's what they're counting, is that vacant land.
Yeah, if I can clarify.
So
So
it's
the
not
mall
existing
was
space.
approved.
It's not existing
It's not
space.
existing space.
No.
It's really what I'm saying.
No.
The
It's
mall
vacant
was
space.
approved for entitlements.
Okay.
And they address impacts,
Right.
right?
Forget it.
They built over the mall boulevard, they did the bridge, this was all done
I get it.
by the mall developer. to address the impact of the mall, and it was for a certain amount of square footage. The mall never reached that square footage, so they have, entitlements that they have not used.
Right.
The Macy's was developed 180,000 square feet, and the developer used that 180,000 and used a portion of that to build the apartments.
Gotcha, okay. So
They also now will have unused, square footage left, a balance of square footage left from Macy's. But the mall itself had a huge amount of square footage that was never used.
Okay, so there's space that was never even built. basically,
Correct.
is what we're
They
saying.
were never
So
built.
basically, this 26,000 square foot reduction is having zero impact on the existing structure that's actually.
It has nothing to do with the building itself.
Nothing to do with that.
It
Okay.
has to do with the entitlements that the land has.
Okay.
And the developer had to go through that analysis to make sure that it wasn't creating a and it does not.
So then my second question is, they did mention traffic, and I said that this new project would not have an impact on traffic, but I kind of hear what he's saying. You got 328 units, if you get 2 cars per unit, that's 650 whatever cars.
And I think we have to remember that the mall was built, and the impact was done for much more.
And
They
they're
never,
vested for those trips. They are vested for those trips. And that was reviewed by the state of Florida, it was Regional County, by Winter Springs, because it's a DRI, Development of Regional Impact.
So again, it's kind of the same thing. The traffic we're saying is not having impact because the full building structure was never completed. So the planned usage of that area for traffic the capacity was never even remotely reached.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying. And that's why this has no impact on the planned uses. From what these guys are saying, I mean, it'll impact maybe the daily look that we see today. But the plan, and I realize this was a high density area of our.
Well, and I was gonna say, remember that
I get it. I know.
remember we had that review, tail end of last year where
That's comprehensive
we
plan.
did the comp plan where that was, the mall was, that whole corridor of the mall was decided to be high,
Oh, I know.
double high density, shall we say. We all remember that.
I'm just,
And if I can just add that in terms of history, the original DRI did not include 184 dwelling units. So it approved up to 4 dwelling units per acre, which was the maximum. So the very first amendment that we did to this DRI was to allow for 184 dwelling units, which is the Isles of Oviedo, and that was back in 2005. It was to allow for 184 dwelling units to support the mall. The idea was to allow residential to support the mall. And so this board reviewed that as well, and it approved. So this is the 4th now amendment to this DRI, and it's 4 dwelling units as well.
Second one and the third one in a year and a half, 2 years, right?
Yes, yes.
and does the land where this is obviously is those fields that are out there right now that's unbuilt on. So that property, I mean, I don't know what sporting kids use that, Little League, soccer, football, whatever out there. I think, is that city recreational parks that is on that, or is that something else?
That's private land.
Okay, so, I think we've been allowing use of that land for these sporting events for a couple of years now, so.
But I think it's informal, right?
That was my question, I didn't know what the.
It's not informal.
I think you were correct. So it's, because all that vacant parcels around the mall, around the roadway, that all belongs to the mall. That was originally designed back when we approved everything to have additional buildings built.
I know, but the mall is supposed to extend past where that again used to be and out that way into
Yeah,
that
so-
area, really.
So that's what, so now we're trying to replay the game, so to speak, with this resolution.
And
the
if I may
suspension.
just add one more thing, you mentioned earlier about the comprehensive plan. We went throughout the city, just took a big picture of how we wanted to grow. And one of the things that everyone who participated said that they wanted to see the density by the mall. That was the one place that we could all agree on that should have the density and intensity. So we increased the density in the mall area. So this is consistent with what I've already done as a city.
And I agree, I know we did all that, and I don't disagree with that. So I was just kind of bringing this up up, in essence, to make sure we're all clear on where the land is coming from, how the traffic is planned, all these sort of things. So it's pretty much on the record here that we did discuss it, and yes, that was the high density area. I realize that.
Let me just clarify, we increased, so Ms. Pierre is right, and I was going to make that point. The comprehensive plan was the big picture, right? The comprehensive plan is the vision of the city, and the horizon is 2045, and I invite any resident that wants to understand the comprehensive plan to reach out to us, and we can sit down and explain what was proposed in the comprehensive plan. And we increased densities and intensities in that area. They are not using that. At this point, they're just using the matrix, so they are just converting trips. They are converting existing entitlements that were already given to the mall, and they are vested for those, to convert commercial to residential. That's what they are doing at this point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please, Mr. Small.
Motion.
You're good? All right, go for it.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 430, recommend approval of resolution number 4303, amend and restate deviation development order, regular one back.
For a second. Matt? Any discussion?
All right, so my motion.
You may can start the conversation.
I know, I'm gonna say this to the board, I'm not addressing this, but I'm addressing this because people out there want to hear it.
Right.
Yeah, I know it can be very frustrating for people who are not on this dais to about more things being built and more things. However, as you heard from the city, there are certain entitlements to certain properties. Mall has extensive entitlements. They haven't even used all of their entitlements. And although we'd like to see certain things, and we discussed this last time when we got the age requirement, when they dropped the requirement, then we adopted an amendment to the age requirement. We were disappointed. It wasn't our call what they do with that. It's their space to do what they do, right? And as a board, we're limited to entitled to do, and what we heard from staff sometimes is that they're allowed to use this land for what they're entitled to do, and they're letting us know, hey, we're going to change what we told you we're going to do with it, but it's still within our entitlement, and evidence to support that it is within their entitlement. We heard from, really appreciate his testimony about there is places in the county ordinance. So with that said, I mean, what they're asking us for is permission for them to use their land as they're entitled to use it. So with that, I don't see nothing was presented that would take away those entitlements. So with that, I would.
I agree with everything David was saying. I think it's, requirements. But, I've always been surprised since I moved here 16, all that wasn't already. So I'm actually kind of glad to find the activity there. I am concerned about school issues. Eventually, we're going to have to build another school at some point. We have a workaround right now. So yeah, that's why I support the.
Any comments? No. And I'll make the final comment before we take the vote. I've been here in the city for about 30-some years now, and I remember the initial conversations about the mall and everything going into the mall. And whereas I respect the concerns of some of the people that live in that area. I do have a coworker that lives in that area as well. And progress is, that should have been built back when the mall was originally started. So it's not, like Mr. Pollack said, where the entitlement is there, it was always there, and they're just redoing it a little bit. And actually, there will probably be less traffic than if the mall would have been fully developed. Back in that time. I think with all the traffic, mall would have drawn traffic from all over East Seminole County. So by putting residential, I think it's going to reduce some of that anyway, from what it's projected on comments. So I will now call the vote. All those in favor of resolution 4303-23, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on, we do not have any other public hearings, discussion items. I have one. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to put on the record after our last work session, traffic consultant, I spoke to city staff after about some recommendations for that, and I just wanted to have that discussed on the record. It was specifically when we were looking at place of long-term, 40-year plan, mobility plan. but I want us to take a look at, Greater Jackson Heights Middle School as well. As of right now, there's only one lane, it causes a lot of traffic. It causes a lot of traffic going in and out of that school.
There's actually two, by the way.
Well.
Technically, there's two.
So, anyway, so anyway, I just brought it up to city staff before to take a look at that area, for another, way in, way out, because, we're trying to, improve traffic, especially along Broadway. It literally ends, the 2 lanes right there in front of the school, and it backs up going both directions, and in and out of that school is a big problem, and it's going to continue to be. And so, city staff said they would take a look at that, and I can say up here, so.
Any other comments? Any other? All right, so the next thing is future meetings. We do have a meeting, let me say this, next Tuesday. It is a work session. And it's regarding, I forgot.
The land development.
Okay, which is very important. We need to be here for that. And then the following meeting is February 21st. So is there an item on the agenda yet for that? Too far out?
We may have from development review.
And hopefully maybe the mics will be fixed by the time city council gets in next week, in our next meeting. Technology is west.
Good job.
Seeing no other items, the motion to adjourn. So we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.